here with Joan Rosenhauer, the Executive Vice President, U.S. Operations, Catholic Relief Services. How you doing?
Fine. How are you?
Good. And how long have you been in Savannah?
I arrived last night.
Good.
So.
In a couple more days?
Yes.
Good. Prior to your work with CRS, you were the Associate Director of Justice, Peace, and Human Development for the United States Conference of Catholic Bishops, the USCCB.
Yes.
How does a Chicago girl end up there?
Well, I have been involved in social ministry in the church for many years, for most of my adult life in various ways. I worked at the Archdiocese of Washington at one point, and so eventually through the kind of connections that I had made in that work to the USCCB, applied for a job and got a job there.
That's excellent. And what was your educational path? Did you go through Catholic schools as a child?
I did go through Catholic schools, including some college at Catholic University. But my bachelor's degree was in social work, and then ended up wanting to focus on international development, and got a master's in international development. So the fit with CRS is a good one.
Is a good one?
Yeah.
And in 2009 is when you stepped into your new role with CRS. What's the overall mission of CRS? What is CRS?
Well, just as Catholic Charities is the part of the church through which we serve people who are poor in the United States, Catholic Relief Services is the part of the church in the United States through which we reach out to the people who are suffering and who are the poorest of the poor all over the world. It's the agency through which we as a community of faith respond to natural disasters, other kinds of emergencies, but also promote development for people who are very poor and for whom some pretty basic responses can make a huge, huge difference in their lives.
Okay. And how are you funded? How do you carry out this work?
We're funded in several different ways. One source of funding is the very generous donors all over the country, mostly Catholics, who support our work and see, giving to this mission as one of the ways that they act on their faith, that they respond to the gospel call to care for the least among us. We also get funding from various private foundations, and we get a fair amount of funding from the federal government. In particular, in recent years, there's been a significant amount of federal funding for responding to the HIV/AIDS pandemic, and we have been one of the key organizations that have been providing treatment for people who are suffering from AIDS around the world.
Okay, and with the current budgetary talks, are there concerns there that we should be aware of?
Yes, there absolutely are concerns. One of the challenges we have is that most Americans think that we as the United States spend far more on foreign assistance than we actually do. The part of our budget, the federal budget, that goes to poverty-focused foreign assistance is actually less than 1% of the federal budget, and yet people think it's a huge amount. So it's easy for people to say, oh, we ought to cut foreign aid, we've got our own debt and deficit challenges here. But in fact, if we cut all of that, it would it's hardly a drop in the bucket when it comes to addressing our debt and deficit problems. We need to address the debt and deficit problems, but really we think that all kinds of options need to be on the table, and that's what the bishops have promoted, and that we can't balance the budget on the backs of the poor, and even if we try to by cutting these programs, it won't make any difference anyway because it's such a small portion of our federal budget.
Okay. And then someone asked me to ask this question. CRS, that's outside the United States, is primarily what your concern is?
Yes.
What's the difference between Red Cross and CRS? And the question posed was, if I have $100,
yeah.
What should I do with it? Give it to CRS, give it to Red Cross, give 50 one place and 50 another? So what's the difference or the benefit of one over the other?
Well, I think the main difference that I would lift up is that Catholic Relief Services is Catholic. Catholic Relief Services is how we, as a community of faith in the United States, respond to the gospel call to care for people who are suffering, to care for our brothers and sisters in need. And so for Catholics in particular, one answer to that question is that it is a kind of an act that includes a response of faith. And we certainly carry out our work in ways that is very reflective of what we believe as Catholics. And so it can be both kind of a civic response, because it certainly does respond to emergencies and needs in the way that the Red Cross does, but it can also be a faith response through this organization that is ours as the Catholic community in the United States.
Right. And then another question that kind of came at us was, how do you know when your work is done? I know that, or I understand that, for example, in Haiti, with the earthquake, that CRS was already there and working boots on the ground when that occurred,
Yes.
and it was very easy for CRS then to turn right around and offer aid.
Right.
What was the CRS mission in Haiti at that time, and do you have ongoing missions, and how do you know when you're done?
CRS works in almost 100 countries right now, and most of those are not emergency response. Most of those are longer-term development programs. There are places where we've done that kind of development, and one of the points I really want to make is that we always work at the request of the local church and work in collaboration with the local church. And there are parts of the world where the kind of development has occurred such that we have greatly reduced or shut down our operation. And a key example of that would be most of Eastern Europe, where at one point we were very active in helping the local church build its social ministry capacity and its response to the poverty that existed there. But over time, that both the capacity of the church developed and the countries themselves developed in terms of their economies. And so we have all but removed ourselves from Eastern Europe. But there are other parts of the world where the problem of poverty is quite intractable, and Haiti, sadly, is one place where poverty is just a huge and ongoing challenge. And so before the earthquake, we had development programs that we were doing that tried to create livelihoods, but we also do things like water and sanitation. The difference that it can make in the life of families and families in a community when they actually have clean water and a clean way to deal with sanitation, it almost can't be imagined until you've kind of seen and talked to people and realized, when mothers say, because we have this well and we have this sanitation project, none of my children died this year. And so in an ongoing way, separate from crises, we try to provide those kinds of programs so that families can just survive and then thrive.
And you mentioned local churches. What can local churches and parishes here in the Diocese of Savannah do to promote what you do with CRS? How can they be involved in it?
Well, Catholic Relief Services has a wide range of resources for parishes and schools in the United States so that they can join in this mission, which is our mission as a Catholic community and as Catholics. And so people can go on our website, they'll see a resource center for Catholics, resources for Catholics in the United States. But there are programs like CRS Rice Bowl, which kind of has two key goals. One is to help families in the United States deepen their experience of Lent and deepen their understanding of the spirituality of Lent, which includes the practices of prayer, fasting, and almsgiving. And for a lot of Catholic families, I think in the United States, it may not be that easy for parents to explain those Lenten practices to their children, or for them to help their children understand and then become involved in those spiritual practices during Lent. But CRS Rice Bowl makes it easy for them, and it makes it fun for them. So we identify countries that families can follow over Lent. We provide simple meal recipes so families can make the recipes together. Children can learn. We have coloring pages for young children, and it can be a real family activity to focus on, what part of what we do to prepare to celebrate the great feast of Easter, which is to be consistent in our prayer, fasting, and almsgiving, and through that bringing us closer to Christ and really reflecting on what He calls us to be. So that's an example where I think it's both good because in the end, through the Rice Bowl, we collect funds. 25% of those funds stay in the diocese to help hungry people here in the diocese. 75% goes to help hungry people all over the world. And so obviously that helps the people who are hungry, who are served through that program. But I think it really helps our parishes and our families and to really bring Lent to life.
Very good. And then in closing, you're riding on an elevator with someone, or you're standing, in a subway, and someone says, "So, what should I remember about CRS? What's the one takeaway you would like everyone to know about CRS?"
Mm-hmm. I think I would want them to remember that CRS represents the Catholic community in the United States and does first-rate, amazing work to help people who are suffering around the world.
Very good.